Welcome back. Let's take you now to this environmental issue in Durban. Dead fish have washed up at the estuary south of the city. Local activists say the cause of this lies in broken infrastructure, and they are calling for urgent intervention before further environmental damage occurs. Peter John represents the Subsistence Fishermen's Forum, and Russel Symcox is a conservationist and co-founder of Catch Trust. They join me for this discussion. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us on the program this afternoon. Peter, I'll start with you. As a subsistence fisherman, how have these events directly impacted your livelihood and community?
Good afternoon to you and your viewers, and thank you for the invite. Firstly, I need to say that our organization represents thousands of subsistence fisher folks in KZN. And these people are reliant on catching fish and other marine species, both in our estuaries and from the ocean, so that they could put food on the table, as well as sell the fish to earn an income to sustain a living. So what we see with the impact of the fish kill that took place at the Slangwada River down the south coast, this is a clear indication of what the authorities do by robbing the poor, vulnerable, destitute families of their food source. Hence, they are allowing these individuals to go to bed on an empty tummy.
Russell, from a conservationist point of view, what are the broader implications of such environmental degradation, if you will, on the local ecosystem?
Yeah, and Franta, thank you very much for this opportunity, and I agree with JP. Unfortunately, this was one of the most highly rated estuarine systems in the eThekwini district. It was one of 3 and was rated as good, and it was an absolute jewel on the south coast. Yeah. Not only does it represent such incredible biodiversity in our river and estuarine systems and provides wonderful life for fish, but we also know that water is life, and all the communities that rely on these waterways and the management of these waterways is critical. So we call upon the authorities to try and ensure that there is some level of accountability, that there's regular monitoring. This didn't just happen overnight. This is an ongoing process, and it's a repeated process. And unfortunately, when we have the scenes and the images that have been shared, and the reason why we have this situation now, it's a collapse of that entire biodiversity, and it is incredibly damaging, and it is incredibly harmful to both that environment, but also to the communities that are surrounding it too.
Peter, judging by what Russell is saying, it does sound like this is not the first time this happens. Could you shed some light on the specific challenges faced by subsistence fishermen in addressing issues like this within their community?
Yeah, that's correct. It appears that it's now become a norm, because several of our rivers or estuaries, that some of them leading into the ocean, have been contaminated, especially with raw sewage. So we must not discount the fact that there are industries upstream on these rivers that also use the opportunity, because everybody thinking it's a sewage problem. They are taking this as an opportunity to discharge their toxic effluents as well into the ocean, into the rivers, and causing major impacts. So what's worse is that when these contaminations take place, our fisher folks are not able to go and fish in these estuaries or even at the beach, because it results in beach closures. And as much as these fisher folks, it is mandatory that they have to be in possession of a valid fishing permit, but they do not get compensated when these kind of disasters occur.
So Russell, in your experience, what are some effective strategies for balancing conservation efforts, also with the needs of local communities who are reliant on natural resources?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So, at the end of the day, we're very blessed in KZN in particular to have so many wonderful scientists, and they need to be consulted, and we need to have forums that are actively seeking solutions for communities. But at the same time, as JP said, we need some accountability from the authorities, because not only, I would imagine, JP, I certainly have seen it, but there's no education around how toxic this water actually is. That water is putrid. If you drive over the river, the smell is so bad that it's indicative of the collapse of this entire ecosystem. The water lettuce has killed all the oxygen in the rivers, and hence the fish are there. But that's a knock-on to the birds and to the plants and everything else that goes with it. So we have done this before, where we've had to actively get in and physically remove a lot of the weeds. And it's often been a citizen science program where we've had to try and get ourselves into harm's way to try and do this. But I don't think that that's entirely the solution. The solution here is for regular monitoring. It's for maintenance of infrastructure and understanding that. There's got to be a proactive approach, not a reactive. And at the moment, that's the problem. We're approaching it reactively. And we've got such amazing departments that could do their work and could do some really good things, but we need them out here. We've called them, we've spoken to them, but it just doesn't seem like our cries are being heard at the moment.
Peter, staying with the theme of solutions, what do you believe are the most pressing actions that are needed to prevent similar incidents from occurring in future?
We are the firm belief that finding solutions is not really going to help unless we fix the root cause of the problem. And this problem that occurred at the White River had been escalated to the respective authorities. It took them almost 4 days to react. And at that time, all the dead fish that were lying there, and we've got people living below the poverty line. Out of desperation, we were concerned that they may want to pick up this fish and take home and consume, or even take it to unsuspected consumers and sell it to them, leading to major health issues, in fact, maybe fatalities. So what we're saying is that myself, together with Russell and his team, we had to raise awareness to the local communities. But we could not be there to monitor 24/7. So how much more can we do? The authorities need to make a concerted effort to ensure that their critical infrastructure, like the pump station, to get those things repaired, get those pumps in working condition, so that we do not have recurring incidents of raw sewage coming into the ocean, into the rivers and in the ocean.
Yeah. Russell, given the situation, it would seem that collaboration is quite key. Let's speak about that. The collaboration between different stakeholders, including fishermen, conservationists, and government agencies, needs to be enhanced to address some of these environmental challenges. What do you have to say about that?
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. There has to be, and JP and his Subsistence Fishing Forums and the Clansel Conservancy, who we represent locally, are exactly those. We co-management in the marine protected areas. We're stakeholders that are actively seeking solutions to try and protect our biodiversity in both our terrestrial and marine environments. And if we do not stand together, we cannot actually afford it. At this current time, economically, etc., we cannot afford to turn a blind eye to this. We have to work together in partnerships, in collaborations, and we need the support of the local authorities. We need some level of accountability, because ultimately that's their role. But as citizens and as key stakeholders in these frameworks, we have to work together. And I'm just so grateful to JP and his members for the contributions that they've made and looking out, because there is a need for education. As he said, there's communities that are living on the banks of the river. Their needs are not being met, and they are critical needs that are not being met, which ultimately results in these situations. And I think if we can try and get back to a place where we work together to restore that. The South Coast in particular cannot afford this kind of impact. Yeah. It was something incredibly beautiful, and if we work together, we may be able to get it right. But the authorities need some accountability.
Peter, with this said, what role do you see grassroots movements and community engagement playing in really advocating for environmental protection as well as sustainable resource management in that region?
Yeah, well, firstly, you need to remember we are NGOs, right? We rely on funding. So we do not have funds that we can task ourselves to go and repair these infrastructures. As much as we raise awareness, we can do it by personal training and putting out flyers and using social media. But then again, These things are occurring, these problems are recurring because of the failure from the local municipalities. And Russell just made mention, this particular area of concern now is a marine protected area. We formed a task team, a working group, comprising of our fisher folks, the local conservancy which Russell belongs to, and together with the KZN Isabella Wildlife. Now we've been guided by marine scientists. So we've identified this area as a marine protected area. So it's senseless that we are restricting people from going and extracting or conducting any fishing activities when the municipality and the relevant authorities are failing us.
Russell, as we get to the butt end of our conversation, can you elaborate on any existing initiatives or policies that are in place to actually mitigate environmental threats in the Durban area? And how effective do you perceive them to be?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked the question. I think you made the point just in your previous question around sustainable resource management. And I think that it comes to that we need some of the sustainable resource management. It's all very well getting a team down, coming in, doing a small bit, but it's about the sustainable longevity programs that are actually going to make a real difference. So we need to engage NGOs, we need to engage community projects, we need to engage with grassroots education, and we need to try and find solutions for this. There are, sadly, not many celebratory stories happening at the moment in our environmental management. There are in between, but unfortunately the lack of infrastructure management and these exact examples, it makes it really difficult to find, highlights and solutions for these things. But yeah. I mean, I can only feel for the desperate need of the folks who are living, and it belongs to all of us, but the folks that are living on that river and the needs of that river. And the water is life, and those rivers and those catchment areas are absolutely critical, and we need to restore the balance ASAP.
As we wrap up this discussion, I'd like to extend our sincere gratitude to our guests. That's Peter John and as well as Russel Symcox for providing us with invaluable insights into the concerning issue of dead fish washing up in the south of Durban.